Can't get this thing balanced. Okay. I'm sure you guys are tired of seeing the same old scenery again. Hello. I'm glad you could come and see my video. If you're one of those that come and see my videos. I try to get out there to get more people to see them, but, you know, like I said, it's really hard to sit and look at the same scenery. Nothing exciting on the video, and then you're listening to some dude in the background that you don't really know if they're telling the truth or not. It's because I even have a problem with that. So if you can bear with it, then you'll be all the smarter. This video, I'm going to talk about the path of righteousness. That's going to be the title of it when I put it on YouTube. And the path of righteousness isn't an easy path. It's actually the most difficult path. And I've gone all over quite a bit of it over the videos that I have already made. And there's a lot to the path of righteousness to actually be on the path of righteousness. When I was younger, I used to always think that the path of righteousness was, you know, mission from God, and that's not too far off if God sets you on a mission. Because, you know, if you read the story of Jesus Christ, he was on the path of righteousness. And that's pretty much trying to figure out what God wants, and you're looking for the truth, and you may test the truth for yourself and find out what's right and wrong. Feelings have a lot to do with the path of righteousness. Right and wrong. It's not an easy thing to do. It's the blind leading the blind. The blind are actually doing it, you know, just like in the scriptures. I'm pretty sure that was the example God was giving when the blind went up to Jesus Christ to be healed. Was the path of righteousness, and the start of it is knowing how you feel, bumping into things that you don't know what you're bumping into, if it hurts or not. If it feels good or not, you know, there's a lot of things to it. It's not just about how you feel. It's about getting, believing in God, listening to somebody talk about God. That brings up faith. Faith comes by hearing the word, or hearing about what God has done for everybody. And that in itself is even a harder thing to figure out. I figured it out. There's been others who have figured it out. And there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to figure it out. It really takes God's intervention in some way to help. That's the unknown factor. That's the factor that's outside ourselves. So, what is the path of righteousness? Well, the path of righteousness starts out as honesty, family, you have an understanding about the importance of family. Not just to say your mom and dad, because, you know, we have to leave our mom and dads. That's just the way it's got to be. We got to try to do things on our own for our own learning ability. But it pretty much starts out with honesty, Not just honesty with other people, but honesty with yourself. Because there's a big difference between being honest with yourself and coming up with some kind of delusion about everything that you're doing. And you're ignoring life. I've known quite a few people who have ignored the real life for drugs or alcohol or both. And they live in this delusional world that they want to create for themselves. And they find other people that are like them, and they hang out together to create this utopia that they believe that they're living under. And it's not the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to be real. You're supposed to care about other people too. And the honesty part is you're looking inward. You're trying to be honest with yourself. You want to know who you are inside, what kind of a person you are. The more you get to know who you are, especially males, the more you can get to know God. You can overlay that over the top of God. You actually will get it. But it does take some book reading. I think I've read like 2 whole libraries, one on all the Christian literature for quite a long time, and that got me a little bit of knowledge, but I can't say it gave me a lot, because the only thing that boils down to truth, to actual truth, would be commanding things, but I don't like doing that too much. Just depends on God and if he's up to the challenge or not, as some people say it. But I only believe that certain people can do that anyway. Yeah, this is quite a hard video to talk about. But if you actually get into the path of righteousness, one of the big factors is reading the Bible and reading the materials that come out, because the scriptures talk about, other people that have been with God and have done this a certain way. There's a certain pattern with these people, and nothing ever seems to change through the ages. Just like how things really are, it's more set up for giving gifts, and I never liked that, not even as a kid, because people are not sincere when they do that. They're just doing it to try to gain popularity. Even at Christmas time, I despised it because I didn't want them, because it didn't change the outlook of the person that was given the gift. Was purely self-motivation on their part, and what they wanted out of the deal, and I didn't care for that at all, because I always believed that if somebody gave you something, it was wholeheartedly a real gift, and they weren't going to try to hold it over your head or dictate to you anything about it or because of it. And So that's been holding pretty true, and I find that, you know, the more important people that are out there seem to want to do that for others and themselves. But if you can get past the honesty part, which is the absolute hardest part, I think, of the whole thing, it's really hard to be honest with yourself and try and remember exactly how everything's taken place. And I've known people out there that were such liars, and they would admit it. They thought it was cool to be a liar, and you couldn't talk to them because they would never tell you the truth about anything. And they might come off as being an expert or this or that or the other thing, but they're lying through their teeth, and you find out that they are, because it's something that you're interested in too. And they would simply look at you and say, well, if you believe anything I say, that's your problem. No, it's not my problem. And not really. It's your problem. Or it's their problem, let's put it that way. But that's a good start for being honest. The second point is prayer. And prayer is a big one, because I've known a lot of people who dream and will actually dream certain important aspects about God, the Bible, things like that, and not even give it a second thought. And the only reason they ever told me was because that's something that I like listening to, and if they'll do it for me, and I can kind of see their viewpoints on things too. More the honest people will want to tell you the dreams, because they believe that, you know, dreams have meanings, but there's kind of a pattern to it. I mean, as far as finding some truth, and then I can match them up with the dreams that I've had, and usually they fall in certain orders. And but reading the Bible is one, because there's a lot of people out there, they believe in God, and people want to believe that there's a God, but they don't want to listen to all the different denominations and this and that, and every time you bring it up, they think you're trying to change who they are. Well, if you're someone like myself, then when you talk about it, you're talking about yourself. You're not talking about the Bible or God, and they just automatically shut you down because you're trying to change them. And that wouldn't be the case, not with me, because with me, it's a little different, you know, and with some other people I know, too, that I know well, let me put it that way. So it's kind of hard to walk the face of the earth, and nobody really knows who you are. And then if you ever open up to them and start telling them some things, then they just don't want to listen to it. But the truth is the truth, no matter what. You can't ignore the truth, not in the long run. And most of the path of righteousness falls into finding God, having a personal relationship with God. That's how I view the path of righteousness. Is you're trying to do it right. You're trying to find out what is the truth about it, if there's a God, and what He wants you to do. When Christ was walking the path of righteousness, God was showing Him what to do. He wasn't telling Him what to do. He was showing Him what to do. And there's a difference in the answers that you get. You know, so if you're hearing somebody say something to the fact, God's talking to me like a normal human being, then most likely they're not, their delusions have overtaken them. Yes, God can talk, God can speak, but He's very biblical. He said a lot of it already, and very little will it vary from previous events. It's always a repeat. So you have the different ages throughout history, and there's a lot of things that keep repeating throughout history. And it's always the events always kind of turn out the same. There's always somebody that wants total power. There's always a bunch of people out there that want power. I never understood the power aspect. That was just not something I never saw, was interested in. Power, I guess power could be okay. You know, I know Apostle Paul talked about it was in the power of God. Which, yeah, you really need to see the power of God, I would say. I don't always get to see it, but it's there. It helps to change who you actually are. But, you know, when the ones who knew God in the Bible were always the prophets in the Bible. And the prophets were always people who wanted to be like God. I get people that tell me that you cannot be like God, and the scriptures say, you know, God says that there won't ever be anybody like Him. You know, and I know that being alive on this planet is that's probably not possible, but you know, when you see Moses, when you read Moses and you see what he did, or was what God let Moses do, I should put it that way, and it wouldn't be easy. Not easy task. I think it's to show how people act towards it. You know, you get people that they actually will fight against going to heaven. I don't know how else to explain it. They don't believe they're worthy. They can't get past the sin part, and a lot of them remain delusional of what the actual truth is. And things don't allow them to believe in a God that wants them. You know, it's a pretty hard concept for a lot of people. And they either think that they're going to have to do something that's not who they are. And if you knew who God really was, it's not about you having to change and forcing yourself like you're hurting yourself kind of thing. God has the ability to change you, and it's for the better. It's not because he's going to try to force you and kill you if you don't do what he wants, because that's what the modern mainstream belief is, that God's going to hurt you if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And that's more the devil's religion. You know, the devil's into the pain and the hurt and all that, and trying to keep people from going to heaven. And I think so far he's done a really, really good job. And I think how God has it really set up is probably the best way, because people can't see past it. They're having a hard time. And I think in the end times anyway, it says that God's going to blind most everybody from knowing the truth, which could be, I mean, I take a look around, but I also look at the history too, about how people were, and no, it hasn't changed. You're either one side or the other side, or in between. Everybody falls in between. Most everybody, you know, like 99.8% of everybody. The other 2%, I think, is either on the light side or the dark side. But if you can break the past it all, break the veil, and there's been a few people that have broken through the veil, and you know, I can word it like that, but you know, in actuality, it's God who understands your prayers and your desires. And you know, I think that's what it's mostly about, is desire. You know, and some people, they desire to ignore everything, and some people desire that they don't want to put up with anything, and other people desire to be drunk all day, and you know, and all that really kind of stunts your growth as a person, as a being, and you're not really going to get anywhere. You know, and my biggest obstacle, I think, is people look at me and either they never want anything to do with me again, they tolerate me, or they'll believe to the point where I really have to watch what I say. And you kind of have to understand it. There's the human side of it, which is there's fallible and infallible, you know, and you have to kind of understand, you know, that even though there's a lot of truth in it and a lot of things, there's still the human side, and the human side is weak and fallible, whatever that word is, fallible. So, you know, if there were actually someone who knew God and was talking to everybody, then you have to understand, it's what God says is what God says. Doesn't matter if the person is going, well, I asked God if he would tell me what to do. What do I need to do? And he would put me in the middle of a table, you know, breaking bread in front of a bunch of people that had tables all facing in the opposite direction, because they used that in the other side of the table as an aisleway to get to the other tables. You know, that's a banquet setup. So, that would be something that God did as an example, not just personal revelation. I have to laugh when I hear that stuff, is personal revelation. Yeah, I suppose somebody could get personal revelation, but when you're talking about actual Bible scenes, then I think it goes beyond personal revelation, because there's an example there. I think that's how you can define the two, because God can lead you through some difficult times, but I just think there's a difference in it. So, but experience counts, and that's what you're listening to, is experience. Dealing with everybody on this planet. But, you know, reading the old prophets and, you know, then going through it and everything, it's everything was done through them for a specific reason, and people fail to understand why. And though I'm not an expert, at least I don't think that I am. I might be, who knows. You know, it's all for salvation, the whole thing. And people keep failing at their salvation. So you have to understand that how God set up salvation. And I've gone over that in my previous videos about how God just set it up. And I know it because you have to be changed by God to know that. You can't just know it. So the Spirit of God has to be put on you. And that just doesn't happen to anybody. It's a bigger, deeper hole than just the everyday born-again experience. You know, I've seen people change into born-again experience, which is all cool, you know, and I've explained what that is, and but with everybody that comes forward and wants to be like God, God does give them a part, and each one of those people in the Bible has put their part in, and there's a reason why God does certain things from the scriptures to repeat them, and that's so we know who each other are. And so we get to a certain point in time, the church is reconstructed from Jesus Christ Church. And I've gone through the Bible, and I had real trouble reading it. But it's the repeats and knowing what everybody's done in it. And I'm not the only one that knows. There are other people. But, you know, you get people that are what they are, who claim to be the same thing, and they're really not. Because they don't understand the dynamics. All those people in the Bible were changed by the same God to know the same things. It's in their personality to know it. It's the glory of it. Apostle Paul describes that glory. You know, and you can have God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit and understand